This is Professor Merle Prunty, University of Georgia, my original mentor in geography. Well, the usual question we begin with at these sessions, how did you first get interested in geography? What got you started?
Well, I got directed into geography by my father, strangely enough. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Missouri, I was following both an A.B. social science and a B.S. science majors, and ended up with both a B.S. and an A.B. incidentally. And sometime during my junior year, I came home to my father and said something like this: these geologists don't ever come up for air, and my friends in biology seem to ignore the presence of man, and it's obvious that he makes a lot of difference in what happens to plants and animals. And on the other hand, my professors in sociology and economics seem to treat the earth like it's just a perfectly round sphere, and things that are obviously natural features on the Earth's surface don't seem to make any difference to them. I wish these two crowds would get together. And something like that.
He said they have.
And he said, they have, you just don't know about it. And he says, what you're talking about is geography. And tomorrow you will go see a man at the university named Professor Sam Bratton, long deceased. He's a geographer, and so I did what my father told me. And that was the end of it. When I got to Bratton, that was the end of it. I became a geographer.
How did you know about geography?
My father?
Yeah.
Well, he was a college administrator at Stevens College, and well, he fooled around with curricula, and it was through that.
I see.
He had a long career in public schools before he went to Stevens.
So then you went to Clark, and who'd you work with at Clark?
Primarily with Clarence Jones, who had a tremendous influence on me, and secondarily with Elmer Ekblaw, mainly in biogeographic stuff. These two men, I think, at Clark had more influence on me than others. Clarence probably most because of his insistence on a large substantive body of knowledge and substantial factual accuracy, which he just demanded of his students.
Well, did your interest in the plantation go back to Clark?
No. Interest in the plantation came out of, well, in part a very unusual father-in-law who interested me in studies in the South shortly after my marriage. He was a Tennessean and a quite elegant gentleman and a scholar in his own way.
Could I add a West Tennessean?
A West Tennessean, right. And when I made a conscious decision right at the close of World War II to go after studies in the American South, because I felt that the region was in an incipient stage of tremendous changes, at least the beginnings of tremendous changes. And as one examined it, the plantation simply became a very fundamental part of the scene that was changing. It was a key type of land use system in the South, and very intrinsic to its both its economy and its culture as it had developed. So that's why I went after it.
What's the future? You are Mr. Southern Geography, and you trained some people and other people beginning to do work on the South. For a long time you carried the flag pretty much alone. What sorts of directions do you think research on the South ought to be taking?
Well, first, I think this asks me what I think are the most important payoff levels, perhaps, in research generally, because I wouldn't say that in the South the payoff levels or the significant things are generically going to be too different from what they are in other areas. My own concern has been primarily an analysis of change processes. I feel that when the research gets back to analyzing the causes of change, the causal factors that underlie variations in spatial distributions, that we're really at our fundamental business. This isn't any new idea, and it isn't particularly original either. The idea really comes from Ed Ackerman's paper on geography as a fundamental research discipline, where he said this quite starkly, I think, and pungently. And I have believed ever since he enunciated it that he'd gotten at a very fundamental thing. And you know my research, and you know that is the kind of thing that has intrigued me the most. So I would say South or elsewhere. In the South, the changes that are associated with the urban scene and the population scene at the present time are very striking. I don't believe that makes them necessarily more important than those that are going on in the world scene, for they're all interrelated. But it's the processes, I think, that underlie these transformations in spatial distributions, spatial organizations, that are the real payoff level for us. And I'd like to hope that my students, as well as the students of many other people, will just go after those kinds of things.
What's the procedure for going after process and understanding it?
Well, I don't know that I have the sole answer, nor am I sure that there is just one answer. I have always been of the opinion that one starts out with the visible morphology. I suppose I'm saying that I like very much Mr. Sauer's basic ideas. Start with the visions that are associated with these morphological sets or morphological matrices, and then move there to the derivation of these functional attributes, and start at rather large scale. I'm definitely field-oriented, and I feel very strongly that before we begin to play with the statistics on a particular area, to which I have no objection, I'm strongly in favor of it. Well, I feel we have to know what the inputs are at the field level into the statistics before we begin to properly comprehend the statistical matrices.
I want to remind you of that.
I want to go to the field first, Fraser.
In 1947, you said one of the coming things in geography is statistics, and by golly, you got to take a course in statistics whether you want to or not.
Yes, I did put you in one in 47.
You asked me to take one in 47, so the qualitative stuff is a lot older than a lot of people think it is. Other than recognition of the importance of it.
I think that the quantitative is a basic tool, and I hope that all of the students that I've been associated would know that I feel that way. I do feel that in the last 15 years, perhaps, we have become so concerned with it, much to our benefit, that we perhaps have been understressing and underplaying the significance of equally important sources of data derivation and analysis. And I believe still that the most fundamental of these is the field process. We must have command of things in the field, or we really don't know our story. For after all, the field is our laboratory.
Well, we can argue about that one. But how do you go about training people?
One of the important.
How do you go about training people in field work?
How do I go about it?
Yeah.
Well, since I don't teach a field course as such, I'm probably a poor one to answer. But
well, you've got students who are doing dissertations with you, doing research with you. What sort of training, what sort of background, how do you go about getting them ready to do field work and to observe this morphology of landscape that you're talking about?
Fundamentally, we want to start them out with learning class intervals in the field and basic data derivation at the eyeball level within the horizon circumscribed by the eyeball. I think it's mapping in the field, associated with basic interview techniques. That's where it starts.
Do you relate your geographical research interest there into a teaching context?
Yes, very much so. It happens I've been fortunate in teaching courses in the South and in Anglo-America and so forth. And I've felt that my best ideas in teaching have come from the field again. And also from some very smart graduate students who've taught me a lot. I even learned from you, Fraser.
I don't believe a word of that, Merle, but there's always hope. Now, you already are saying that these are really interacting parts of the same process.
I definitely believe it. I believe that the good teacher is a researcher, and that the good researcher gets a feel for problems that he needs to attack from his classes.
So you think that teaching, I guess the teaching I got from you was pretty influential on me, and so I can testify you're a moderately good teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Merle.